Thank you so much, ICA Chai Wan, for worshiping with us today.
多謝你 ICA 柴灣選擇咧同我哋一齊去敬拜主耶穌。
Let us begin with a story.
讓我哋咧首先以一個故事咧去開始。
Once in a small town lived a blind man who would carry a lighted lamp wherever he went.
從前咧有一個嘅小鎮裏邊咧有一個嘅盲人嘅，就係無論佢去到邊一度都好啦，佢都會帶住一盞燈嘅。
And one night while he was out with his lamp, a group of children saw him.
有一晚咧，佢就係同樣地帶住佢嘅燈走咗出去，跟住有一群嘅細路咧就見到佢啦。
And noticing that he was blind, they could not understand why he would carry a lamp and started to make fun of him.
呢班嘅細路咧見到佢係盲嘅，佢哋咧並唔明白點解佢需要帶住一盞燈咧，跟住就開始咧去嘲笑佢啦。
They asked him, "You are blind, but why do you carry a lamp?"
佢哋就問呢個嘅盲人：你係盲嘅，點解仲需要帶住一盞燈呢？
And the blind man replied, "Yes, I am blind, but I still carry a lamp for people like you who can see. If I walk at night without a lamp, you may not see me and may run into me."
呢一個嘅盲人咧就回答呢一班嘅細路：係啊，我係盲㗎，但係我仍然需要帶住呢盞燈，讓到好似你咁嘅人咧去睇到我啊。因為如果我夜晚嘅時候我唔帶燈咧，你可能會睇唔到我，跟住咧就撞咗埋嚟我嗰度。
The children felt bad for judging the blind man wrongly, and they apologized.
呢班嘅細路咧覺得佢哋咧去論斷咗呢一個嘅盲人，跟住咧佢哋就同佢道歉。
It seems common and a very common practice for people to criticize and judge others' strangeness and weaknesses.
其實咧都幾容易，一個人咧會去睇到其他人啲好怪嘅事情咧，跟住就去論斷咗佢噶啦。
In fact, it is so common that one would think that it is a normal thing to do.
其實咧都幾平常嘅，就係咧一個人覺得呢個咧係一個好正常嘅事情。
Judging others blindly can cause us to wrongly interpret what is happening in another person's life.
其實我哋去麻木咁樣去喺人哋嘅生命裏邊咧去論斷人咧，其實係一件幾錯嘅事㗎。
We don't always understand why people do things the way they do.
因為咧我哋唔係經常都可以明白人哋點解要咁樣做。
And therefore, we should not judge, but try to understand people.
所以我哋唔應該論斷人嘅，而係去嘗試明白人。
Today's passage contains one of the most misunderstood and misinterpreted teachings of Jesus found in Matthew chapter 7.
今日咧我哋會睇一段咧係經常被人誤解嘅一段耶穌嘅教導，就係喺馬太福音第7章。
Jesus, some 2,000 years ago, realizing our tendency to make unrighteous judgment, he said, "Judge not that you be not judged, for with the judgment you pronounce, you will be judged. And with the same measure you use it, it will be measured to you."
耶穌喺2000年前咧就已經知道發現到咧人咧通常好容易咧就會去論斷咗人㗎啦。佢咧咁講喺馬太福音第7章1至2節：你們不要評斷別人，免得你們被審判。因為你們怎樣評斷別人，也必怎樣被審判。你們用什麼量器量度人，也必用什麼量器量給你們。
Jesus gives a very clear statement, "Judge not," and then he gives a very clear reason why that you be not judged.
耶穌講話：你們不要評斷別人，跟住咧佢講咗一個好清楚嘅原因，點解我哋唔可以咁做咧？
So let us begin with the word "judge not." What does it mean when Jesus say or uses the word "judge"?
耶穌講話論斷，究竟論斷係乜嘢意思咧
？The word "judge" in Greek is krino, and it simply means to condemn or to pronounce someone guilty.
呢個論斷呢一個字咧，其實喺希臘文嚟講咧係 krino， 就係咧去定一個人罪嘅意思。
The same word is used in John chapter 3, verse 16 to 18. "For God so loves the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to krino, to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned. But whoever does not believe is already condemned because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God.
同樣嘅字咧，亦都係喺約翰福音3章16至18節嗰度寫到，話上帝愛世人，甚至將他獨一的兒子賜給他們，叫一切信他的不至滅亡，反得永生。因為上帝差他的兒子到世上來，不是要定世人的罪 （krino）， 而是要世人因他得救。信他的人不被定罪，不信的人已經被定罪，因為他們不信上帝獨一兒子的名。
Here Jesus is saying that without or outside of him, the world is already condemned.
其實呢度耶穌講到咧，話喺佢嘅以外咧，就會被定罪啦。
So in Matthew chapter 7 verse 1, our passage for today, Jesus obviously is not speaking of the act of judgment where man judges others, but it is man's attitude, judgmental attitude toward others that he's confronting.
所以咧喺馬太福音7章1節嗰度講咧，就係耶穌話係我哋嗰個論斷人嘅態度啊。
Ultimately, it is God himself who is the judge that is responsible for the act of judgment, but it is man who oftentimes carries a judgmental attitude toward others.
因為其實清楚咧，聖經咧好清楚話俾我哋聽咧，上帝先係嗰個嘅審判，佢先至可以去審判一個人。而好多時候咧，人咧係帶咗自己一啲審判嘅態度咧去論斷人。
And it is this attitude that he's addressing that is always causing a negative, divisive, and even a destructive consequence.
就係呢一種經常去論斷人嘅態度，總係消極嘅、分裂嘅，同埋咧充滿破壞性。
Judgmental attitude is destructive because our judging always leads to others turning away from God, which is very sad.
因為咧呢一種論斷人嘅態度咧，其實好多時候都會令到一個人咧遠離上帝㗎，其實都幾係可悲嘅。
It is divisive because another form of judgment is gossip.
因為咧好分裂性，點解咧？其實就係因為論斷人嘅時候咧，其實就係好似去説三道四咁。
Our tongue can be the most dangerous, destructive, and deadly weapon available to man.
其實我哋嘅舌頭咧，可以係非常之嘅危險，充滿破壞性，係一個咧武器嚟㗎。
Our gossip can cost people's lives and destroy their reputation.
但我哋咧去講是非咧，其實可以破壞一個人，影響一個人嘅聲譽名譽。
And how many times when words are spoken behind people's back in the form of criticism or judgmental attitude is being passed on from one person to the other person.
其實好多時候咧，我哋講嘅一啲言語、一啲嘅是非咧，就會逐個咁咧傳咗開去啦。
So in order to stop this, we are not to listen to or accept and even repeat criticism spoken of others.
所以咧，我哋要停止呢種行為咧，我哋就係唔好去接受，或者咧，我哋唔好去重複我哋聽到嘅嘢，然後咧就去傳俾下一個人去論斷人。
And sadly, when our friends are accused of wrongdoing or any kind of criticism and even gossip, we instead of stopping it, we disloyally accept and repeat what we hear without knowing all the facts.
但好不幸地咧，有陣時我哋當聽到一啲嘅是非嘅時候咧，我哋係選擇咗去接受咗佢，跟住咧去重複我哋聽到嘅嘢，然後咧就傳開去。
And ultimately resulting in friendships destroyed.
好可悲嘅咧，就係呢啲嘅事情咧，令到好多朋友之間嘅關係咧都被破壞啦。
And if there be one place in life where the attitude of the agnostic is acceptable, it is in this matter of judging.
其實如果有一樣嘅地方喺我哋嘅生命裏邊咧，係唔能夠被接受嘅，就係去論斷人啦。
It is the courage, it's completely okay for us to say, I do not know. I am waiting for further evidence, or I must hear from both sides.
其實咧，更加好嘅處理方法咧，就係去咁樣嘅回應就係話我唔係太清楚， 我咧需要等待更加多嘅證據，我需要咧去雙方都聆聽先至可以有呢一個嘅意見。
Judgmental attitude is a negative one because it makes us self-critical.
其實論斷人嘅態度咧係非常之負面嘅，因為咧其實都係對於自己一個好批判性。
The more you judge others, the more you judge yourself.
因為你越係去論斷人咧，你其實就係更加多嘅論斷自己。
By constantly seeing the bad in others, we train our minds to find the bad in us.
我哋與其一路咧係咁用我哋嘅態度咧去見到其他人嘅唔好處咧，其實我哋就係一路去訓練緊自己個腦袋咧去揾自己嘅唔好。
And we become experts in fault finding.
我哋咧變咗係好似揾錯誤嘅
And
專
this
家
can
咁。
lead to an increase in stress.
呢個咧會造成啦我哋自己咧覺得好大壓力㗎。
And eventually it leads to health problems.
啊，你哋嘅壓力啊，其實咧都會影響我哋個人嘅健康喎。
Now, judgmental attitude is often based on our perception, prejudice, pride, pettiness, and even personal feeling rather than the principles and precepts of Scripture.
其實我哋論斷人咧，好多時候咧都係會因應我哋嘅偏見啦，可能係因為我哋嘅自高自大啦，而唔係根據聖經嘅一啲原則。
Ultimately, when we judge others, we are playing God and taking the place of God Himself.
其實當我哋論斷人嘅時候咧，其實我哋就係擺咗我哋嘅位置係喺上帝嗰度。
And this is described clearly when the scribes and the Pharisees wanted to condemn the woman caught in adultery in John chapter 8.
嗱，其實喺約翰福音第8章裏邊咧，當講到文士同埋法利賽人咧，佢哋想去將嗰個行淫嘅女人去處死嘅時候咧，就説明咗有一啲嘢㗎。
In John chapter 8, verse 3, the scribes and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and placing her in the midst, they said to him, Teacher, this woman has been caught in the act of adultery. Now in the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. So what do you say? And then in verse 10, at the end of the story, Jesus stood up and said to the women, Women, where are they? Has no one condemned you? She said, No one, Lord. And Jesus said, Neither do I condemn you. Go, and from now on, sin no more.
嗱喺約翰福音第8章第3節嗰度開始咧，文士和法利賽人帶著一個犯姦淫時被捉的女人來，叫她站在當中，然後對耶穌說：老師，呢個女人係正係犯姦淫嘅時候被捉到嘅。摩西喺律法書上命令我們把這樣的女人用石頭打死。那麼你怎麼說呢？跟住我哋睇到第10節，耶穌就直起腰來對她說：婦人，那些人在哪裏呢？沒有任何人定你的罪嗎？他說：主啊，沒有。耶穌說：我也不定你的罪，去吧，從今以後不要再犯罪了。
The Pharisees were not interested in justice or righteousness.
其實呢一班嘅文士同埋法利賽人咧，佢哋唔係真係好想去講公義㗎。
They wanted to judge this woman, and literally it means to condemn her, to pronounce her guilty.
其實佢哋想去論斷呢一個嘅女人咧，就係想去定佢罪，將佢處死。
But then, if you ask yourself, why is that only the woman that was presented to Jesus? How about the man?
但你都要咧喺問一個問題，因為當你睇個故事嘅時候咧，你會諗到就係咁點解淨係個婦人咧？個男人喺邊咧？
This kind of judgmental attitude is to punish someone and even to destroy someone instead of helping that person.
其實呢一種咧好論斷嘅態度咧，其實就係想一個人去對一個人咧置諸於死地。
And contrast that with Jesus, how Jesus responded to these women.
嗱，我哋將呢一班嘅法利賽人佢哋嘅回應方式對比一下耶穌回應嘅方式。
Jesus did not excuse her sin.
嗱，耶穌咧冇為佢嘅罪咧去擺上藉口㗎。
But Jesus did not condemn her too.
但係耶穌咧並冇想將佢處死。
In fact, Jesus gave her the permission to live.
耶穌為佢俾咗佢一個嘅權利，再次嘅去繼續生活落去。
Instead of having a judgmental attitude, we are to be like Jesus, giving people a permission to live.
我哋與其咧係俾人一個嘅 論斷，我哋應該學像耶穌咁樣，俾人一個機會去再次嘅去生活落去。
Now, don't get me wrong and don't get Jesus wrong.
嗱，唔好誤會我，亦都咧唔好將耶穌嘅説話誤會。
Jesus is not saying that this woman had no sin.
耶穌唔係講緊咧呢個女人係冇罪喎。
Or Jesus is not saying that it is okay for her to sin.
耶穌咧亦都唔係辯護緊呢一個女人覺得佢可以行淫喎。
Jesus is not giving excuses for her sin.
耶穌咧冇為到佢嘅罪咧去揾上藉口。
In fact, Jesus gave her a second chance to live.
耶穌咧為呢一個嘅女人咧，俾咗佢有第二次嘅機會去繼續生存。
And ultimately, Jesus is saying to the woman, let me take your sin and let God judge me.
其實耶穌係同呢一個女人講，讓我去承擔你嘅罪，讓上帝去審判我啦。
Maybe some of us here, you're asking, did Jesus mean that other Christians are not to confront or correct us when we sin?
可能咧你都會問一個問題，就係耶穌係唔係講緊咁其他基督徒咧係唔應該去對付罪，又或者咧係我哋犯罪嘅時候咧唔應該去矯正我哋咧？
The answer is no.
你都知啦，其實個答案咧就係唔係噶。
Because later on, we also learn in Matthew 18, in verse 15, Jesus taught, if your brother sin against you, go and tell his fault. Between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained, you have won, you have helped your brother.
因為咧，其實喺之後咧，耶穌喺馬太福音18章嗰度咧，佢亦都教導我哋，若係你嘅弟兄得罪你，你要去趁着淨係你同佢一齊嘅時候咧，指出佢嘅錯。佢如果若聽你嘅咧，你就贏得你嘅弟兄。
Jesus did not say pretend that nothing happened when your brother sinned, but he says, go tell him his fault.
耶穌唔係講緊當你嘅弟兄犯罪嘅時候咧，你就扮唔知喎。耶穌講緊咧就係話你去啦，你話俾佢聽。
As a church, we must be biblically and doctrinally sound and correct.
作為教會咧，我哋必須要係根據聖經同埋喺教義上咧係正確嘅。
But equally important, our attitude and our spirit towards sinners and people who don't live right must be right as well.
同樣地重要嘅咧就係我哋對於罪人嘅態度，我哋對佢嘅處理方法咧，都需要係正確嘅。
But how do we do it? That's the question.
我哋點樣做咧？呢一個咧就係巧妙嘅地方。
When we see our brothers and sisters living in sin, do we come in with a high and mighty attitude, a judgmental attitude, or do we come with humility and honesty, meekness, saying, let me help you, let me pray for you, let me support you?
我哋若然見到我哋嘅弟兄姊妹咧喺罪裏邊嘅當中，我哋會唔會咧係好似站在呢個好高高在上嘅位置咧去指斥佢咧？定係我哋咧以一個謙卑嘅心嚟到佢哋嘅面前去同佢哋講話，讓我為你禱告啊，讓我去支持你，讓我去幫助你，你咧唔好再犯罪啦。
And to say what Jesus said to this woman caught in adultery, neither do I judge you, neither do I condemn you.
我哋會唔會好似學像耶穌咁？我咧亦都唔會去定你嘅罪，我亦都唔會去論斷你。
Galatians chapter 6 verse 1, Paul tells us, brothers, if anyone is caught in any transgression or sin, you who are spiritual should restore him in a spirit of gentleness. Keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted.
喺加拉太書第6章1節嗰度咧，保羅講到話：弟兄們，若有人偶然被過犯所勝，你們屬靈的人就要用溫柔嘅心把他挽回過來，自己也要留意，免得也被引誘。
And the key word here is spirit of gentleness.
其實呢一度嘅重點咧就係屬靈嘅人要用溫柔嘅心。
What kind of Christian will we be or do we want to be?
其實我哋究竟想成為一個點樣嘅基督徒呢？
To judge or not to judge?
我哋究竟係想論斷人啦，定係唔被論斷呢？
To follow the examples of the Pharisees or the example of Jesus in this story?
我哋究竟係追隨好似法利賽人咁樣嘅回應方式啊，定係我哋係追隨基督耶穌呢？
The Pharisees, with their self-righteousness, condemned the women.
嗰啲嘅法利賽人咧，佢哋用到自義去定呢一個女人嘅罪。
But Jesus, with his true divine God's righteousness, helped the woman and give her a second chance to live.
但耶穌咧係 用佢嘅憐憫，用屬天嘅義咧，去讓到呢一個嘅女人咧有再次嘅生命。
Look at the text again. Jesus said, "Judge not, that you be not judged."
嗱，我哋如果再次睇一睇呢一句説話，馬太福音第7章1節嗰度講咧，佢話不要評斷別人，免得你們被審判啊。
He actually gives us a word of warning not to judge because God will judge us in return.
其實耶穌咧去提醒我哋就係我哋唔好去評斷別人，因為上帝會審判翻我哋嘅。
And do we want God to treat us the same way we would treat others?
我哋想唔想上帝對我哋用我哋點樣對人嘅方法去對我哋呢？
When you are harsh with others, God will deal with you harshly as well.
嗱，當我哋對人咧係非常之嘅嚴厲嘅時候，上帝亦都對我哋好嚴厲嘅。
When you're gentle toward others and forgiving toward others and be patient toward others, God will show the same kindness and gentleness toward you.
當我哋對人好好、好温柔嘅時候咧，上帝亦都會同樣地咧對我哋好温柔，對我哋好好嘅。
The expression, "Who am I to judge?"
其實呢句説話，我究竟係邊個可以去論斷人呢？
It is so true because God is the ultimate judge and He always judges with compassion, not condemnation.
其實呢句説話咧係非常之真實嘅，因為上帝先係嗰個最終嘅審判者，佢用佢嘅憐憫去作出審判。
It is said that we judge ourselves by our intentions, but God judges others only by their actions and appearance.
其實咧有人咁講，佢話咧我哋係根據我哋自己嘅意圖去評判、去評斷自己，但係咧當我哋去睇人哋嘅時候咧，我哋就淨係睇到佢嘅行為舉止、佢嘅外表咁樣去審判人。
It is said that we judge others by our intentions, but judge others only by their actions and appearance.
我哋咧好多時就係以我哋自己嘅意圖咧去評斷自己，但係當我哋去審判人嘅時候咧，我哋就審判緊人哋嘅行動、行為同埋佢哋嘅外表啊。
It's very unfair, obviously.
其實咧呢一個係非常之唔公平嘅。
We can't see others' intention, but only their actions.
我哋見唔到其他人佢哋嘅出發點、佢哋嘅意圖，但係淨係見到佢哋做咗嘅嘢嘅啫。
But God sees both.
但係上帝其實係兩樣都見到嘅。
And therefore, we are not to play God.
所以咧，我哋唔應該將自己擺喺上帝嘅位置。
God can see the heart, we cannot.
上帝見到人嘅心，但係我哋唔能夠。
Have you heard of the phrase, "Never judge a book by its cover"?
你應該都會聽過一句説話嘅，就係我哋咧唔好透過一個嘅封面咧就去評斷一本書好唔好睇。
Let me tell you a story.
讓我咧去話俾你聽一個故事啊。
Once upon a time,
曾經有一段嘅事件，
there lived a little girl with her mother and a little brother.
有一個嘅細路女咧，佢同佢嘅媽媽同埋佢有一個細佬嘅。
And one day, she wanted to eat apples, so she asked her mother to give her an apple.
有一日咧，佢就想食蘋果，跟住咧佢就問佢媽媽咧去俾蘋果佢。
Instead of one, her mother gave her 2 apples.
佢媽媽咧冇俾一個蘋果，而係俾咗2個嘅蘋果佢。
She was so glad she sat on the chair holding 2 apples in her hands.
佢咧非常之嘅開心，佢坐喺張凳嗰度咧就係揸住2個嘅蘋果。
And her mother wanted to teach her a lesson on sharing, softly asked her.
佢媽媽咧就係想其實讓佢學懂一啲嘢，所以咧就咁樣溫柔咁樣去問佢。
They say, "Girl, can you share one of that apple with your little brother?"
佢媽媽咧就同呢一個嘅女講，就係話：親愛的，你可唔可以咧將一個嘅蘋果分俾你嘅細佬咧？
The girl looked at her little brother and suddenly took a bite on one of the apple.
呢個嘅細路女咧，佢就望一望佢嘅細佬，跟住咧就突然之間咧就將一個嘅蘋果咧就咬咗一口。
Then she quickly took another bite on the second apple.
跟住咧佢又將另外一個嘅蘋果咧又咬咗一口。
Seeing this made the mother feel really sad.
其實咧呢一個媽媽咧，當佢見到咁樣嘅事情嘅時候咧，佢覺得非常之唔開
She
心。
was disheartened after seeing her child's selfish behavior.
佢為到見到自己個女，見到自己嘅一啲咁自私嘅行為咧，而感到唔開心。
After a few moments of silence, the little girl handed one of the apples to her brother.
其實咧之後咧呢一個嘅細路女咧，佢就將其中一個嘅蘋果俾咗佢嘅細佬。
And told his brother, take this one, this is the sweeter apple.
跟住咧佢就同佢細佬講，佢話細佬，你食呢一個啦，呢一個係甜啲嗰個。
Suddenly the mother realized the mistake of quickly judging her little girl before understanding her true intention.
突然之間咧，呢一個嘅媽媽咧就察覺到佢錯怪咗佢個女啊。
She felt sorry that she was wrong and was amazed by her daughter's selfless behavior.
佢媽媽咧覺得非常之嘅對唔住，佢咧對於佢嘅女嘅呢一個行動咧，佢非常之嘅驚訝。
The same is true in life. We should always avoid judging others too quickly, too soon, by our own level of perception, pride, and even passion, our personal feeling, prejudice, and even pettiness.
同樣地咧，我哋喺我哋嘅生命裏邊咧，我哋都要嘗試去避免用我哋自己嘅意識層面或者係我哋嘅自傲、我哋個人嘅感覺、我哋嘅偏見去論斷咗人。
This story reminds us and humbles us to acknowledge that there is more to what we actually see with our physical eyes.
呢個嘅故事咧，其實教咗我哋一樣嘢。其實有一啲嘅事情，佢個故事咧，係比我哋能夠睇到嘅咧，都更加多嘅。
And therefore, we should always remain open-minded and give people a benefit of doubt.
所以咧，我哋經常都要持一個開放式嘅態度，讓我哋唔清楚整件事嘅時候咧，我哋就去唔好論斷人啦。
It is not our place to judge others because we do not know people's true intention and their heart.
其實我哋係冇資格去論斷人嘅，因為咧我哋見唔到其他人嘅心，佢哋真正嘅意圖。
Our world is so complex, even with all the information that is made available to us.
其實我哋呢個世界咧係非常之嘅複雜，但係即使有好多嘅資訊，
Not everything is known.
唔係我哋全部嘢都知嘅。
So let us refuse to judge hastily and harshly.
讓我哋咧去拒絕，去好急速、好嚴厲咁樣咧，就去審判咗人。
People do not need our condemnation, but they need our compassion.
其實人咧唔需要我哋去定佢哋嘅罪㗎，佢哋更加需要嘅咧係我哋嘅憐憫。
We are called to love others as Christ would, so that they may come to Jesus instead of walk away from Jesus.
其實我哋被召咧就係要好似耶穌基督咁樣去愛呢啲人，同埋咧將佢哋帶到去基督嗰度。
Jesus did not just end this teaching on this note. In fact, Jesus challenges us in the following verses.
耶穌咧其實咧唔係喺呢一度咧就咁去完咗佢嘅教導㗎，佢咧係用之後嘅呢幾句咧去挑戰緊我哋，教我哋多啲嘅嘢。
In verse 3, he said, "Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye."
喺馬太福音7章3至5節嗰度講話，為什麼看見你弟兄眼中有刺，卻不想自己眼中有梁木呢？你自己眼中有梁木，怎能對你弟兄說，讓我去掉你眼中的刺呢？你這假冒為善的人，先去掉自己眼中的梁木，然後才能看得清楚，好去掉你弟兄眼中的刺。
Jesus here is talking about self-examination.
其實咧，耶穌呢度係講緊咧，我哋要自我監察啊。
It is so easy to be looking at other people's fault, and yet it is so difficult and painful for us to notice our own.
其實我哋睇人哋嘅錯處咧，非常之容易嘅，但係咧係非常之難咧去見到自己錯嘅地方。
David in the book of Psalms, his prayer to God is, "Search me, O God, and know my heart today."
大衛咧，佢喺佢嘅禱告裏邊咧講話，求你監察我，知道我嘅心思。
Paul's advice to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 16, "Keep a close watch on yourself and on the teaching. Persist in this, for by so doing you will save both yourself and your hearers," those people that you minister to.
保羅咧，佢對於提摩太咧作出咁樣嘅指導，佢就話要謹慎自己和自己的教導，要在這些事上恒心，因為這樣做既能救自己，又能夠聽你的人。
In fact, when Jesus said, "Judge not," he is focusing on we are to examine ourselves because when we are busy judging others, we will always miss examining ourselves.
其實呢度咧講緊就係話，當我哋咧去揾人哋嘅錯處，我哋淨係去評斷人嘅時候咧，我哋其實就係唔記得咗，睇唔到自己裏邊嘅錯誤啊。
When we examine ourselves, then we are in a better position to help others.
其實我哋當自己有一個自我省察嘅時候咧，我哋先至能夠更加幫助到其他嘅人。
I like what Warren Wiersbe has to say on this topic. He says, the Pharisees judge and criticize others to make themselves look good, but Christians should judge themselves so they can help others look good.
我好中意咧 Warren Wiersbe 咧講嘅一句説話，佢話法利賽人咧評判去批判佢哋其他嘅人咧，係要令到自己好睇，但係基督徒咧應該要作出自我嘅監察，以便咧佢哋可以幫助到其他人更加好睇。
These words of Jesus highlight that none of us are perfect.
其實我哋啱啱講到嘅呢啲經文，耶穌咧係教導我哋咧，我哋冇人係完美嘅。
And in John chapter 8, the story that we just read today, Jesus, remember what he said to the Pharisees. He says that, let him who is without sin among you be the first to throw a stone at the woman who is caught in adultery.
其實咧啱啱睇到嘅約翰福音第8章嗰度啦，耶穌去講同啲法利賽人講咧，就係話你們中間誰沒有罪，誰就先拿石頭打呢個行淫嘅女人。
And guess what? The story tells us one by one they left that place.
呢個故事咧係點講嘅咧？佢話咧呢啲人逐一嘅離開。
This illustration is splendidly simple yet supremely specific that none of us are perfect.
其實呢個故事咧説出嘅一個道理咧係非常之簡單，亦都係好具體嘅，就係我哋冇人係完美嘅。
But the problem is not our imperfection. The problem that he's addressing is our judgmental attitude towards others, the imperfect people in our lives.
但耶穌最想講嘅咧，唔係講話我哋冇人完美嘅，而係我哋唔應該去論斷其他人。
The last few Sundays, the last few weekends, we've been talking about happy people.
喺過去嘅幾個禮拜咧，我哋一直都講緊啦，快樂人係啲乜嘢？
We talk about the common characteristics or qualities of people who are happy.
我哋講緊咧一啲嘅特質，就係通常咧快樂人有嘅。
For the last few weekends, we have learned happy people have some common characteristics.
喺過去嘅幾個禮拜咧，我哋去講到咧快樂人咧有一啲好相同嘅特質嘅。
Because they are grateful, therefore they are happy.
因為佢哋好感恩，所以咧佢哋好開心。
Because they are loving, therefore they are happy.
因為咧佢哋充滿愛嘅，所以咧佢哋好開心。
Because they are positive, therefore they are happy.
因為佢哋正面，所以咧佢哋變得快樂。
And today we learn that people who refuse to judge others will be happy.
今日咧我哋教緊就係當一個人佢哋拒絕去審判論斷人嘅時候咧，佢哋咧就會好快樂嘅。
And instead, sometimes we tend to believe that we are happy because we judge others.
好多時候咧，我哋都係會不自然覺得咧，當我哋論斷咗人嘅時候咧，我哋就會開心。
But instead, because we refuse to judge others and we choose to examine ourselves, it makes us a happier person.
但係其實當我哋拒絕去論斷人嘅時候，而作出自我監察咧，其實我哋會更加快樂。
Today, let me ask us honestly.
今日咧，我好想去問大家一個問題。
Are there people that you have been judging, that you have hurt others through gossiping or through condemning them?
喺你生命裏邊咧，有冇一啲嘅人，你係一直對佢有論斷嘅咧？你一直咧想定佢死罪嘅？
Would you pause for a moment and search your heart and ask God to reveal that to you?
我哋咧不如咧就係用以下嘅少少時間，我哋靜低落嚟，我哋問上帝呢啲嘅人係邊一個咧？
and so easy to spot the faults and the weaknesses of others.
非常之容易咧去見到其他人嘅錯誤。
And possibly the Spirit is touching your heart that you would make that right and even ask for forgiveness from that person.
我哋就用呢段時間咧，俾聖靈咧去觸摸我哋嘅心，去諗下我哋點樣咧去唔再論斷佢哋。
I was searching my own heart before this sharing with you this message.
其實咧，我自己咧都喺當我去分享呢一個信息之前咧，我去作出一個自我嘅監察。
Only 2 days ago,
就喺2日前，
I saw a dog standing in the middle of the street.
就係我喺街裏邊咧，我見到有2隻狗。
And I asked myself, why is that dog so stupid standing in the middle of the street where there were many cars?
我咧其實就已經咧作出咗一個論斷啦，就係點解呢隻狗咧會企喺路嘅中心咧？
And then I found out the dog is blind.
跟住咧，我發現原來呢隻狗咧佢係盲㗎。
But I made a judgment on the dog. I said he's stupid for standing in the middle of the street.
但係咧，當我喺未知道佢係盲之前咧，我就作出咗論斷，就係話點解你咁蠢，企喺路中心㗎，咁多車。
And then I even told myself the owner must be so irresponsible to allow the dog to just leave the house and be outside like this on his own.
我仲要咧論斷埋個主人啊，覺得咧佢非常之魯莽唔負責任，就咁咧將隻狗擺喺路嘅中間。
And then I saw the owner running to rescue the dog, and I talked to the owner, and then I learned the owner was looking for the dog because the dog escaped, ran away from the house.
跟住咧我就見到呢一個嘅主人咧出咗嚟，佢咧去拯救呢隻嘅狗。跟住咧我有機會咧同呢一個嘅主人咧去傾偈，發現咧原來呢隻狗咧佢先至離開咗，而佢咧係盲嘅，佢蕩失咗路。
She wasn't irresponsible.
佢
The
咧
owner.
並唔係唔負責任。
In fact, she's very responsible. She went out looking for the dog.
其實佢係非常之有責任心，佢咧去尋找翻呢隻狗。
And today, would you make a decision to go and make it right with those people that you have judged and judged wrongly?
今日咧，你會唔會選擇作出一個嘅決定咧？就係去同嗰啲咧你一直係論斷咗佢嘅人咧，你去放開。
You may even be right, but unfortunately, your attitude was wrong.
可能咧你嘅意見咧係啱嘅，但係你裏邊嘅態度咧係錯嘅。
Heavenly Father,
天父啊，
today we examine our heart.
今日咧我哋去監察我哋嘅心，
Would you heal our hearts?
你可以去醫治我哋。
Would you help us to see our own faults and our own weaknesses?
你讓我哋咧去見到我哋自己嘅一啲短處、一啲嘅問題。
And today we also pray that you give us the courage to make right with the people that we have wrongly judged.
今日咧，你亦都係求你去俾到我哋有勇氣，去同嗰啲咧我哋一直都論斷緊佢哋嘅，我哋誤會咗佢哋嘅人咧重新
That have
和好。
resulted in division.
可能咧係造成有不和嘅，
That have resulted in our relationships broken.
可能咧造成咧我哋嘅關係咧得到破壞。
We may have been right, but our spirit and our attitude have been wrong.
可能即使我哋嘅意見咧係正確嘅，但係我哋喺背後嘅動機，我哋嘅態度係錯嘅。
And Father, today help us, give us the humility and honesty before them.
天父啊，今日咧求你俾到我哋有謙卑喺佢哋嘅面前咧，我哋去唔再論斷佢哋啦。
In Jesus' name we pray.
奉主耶穌嘅名字祈求，
Amen.
阿門。
God bless you.
上帝祝福你。